what's good? Welcome back to the 2.9 million channel. So today I'm going to teach you guys how to spot a winning setup and the conditions that you have to look for before even deciding to jump in. So before wasting any time, so I'm looking at volatility 25, the 1 minute time frame. So I'm not going to be using multi time frames for this one. I'm just going to teach you guys how to trade just using one time frame and just on the 1 minute time frame. So I want to teach you guys how to be able to handle one time frame, right? So this trade allows you to not be confused, to not look at a lot of things, to minimize the things that you usually look for before even jumping into a trade. So now we're gonna be very technical when it comes to jumping in, because that plays a big role in terms of getting the best results possible. So what I'm going to do is first explain to you what I see, and then I'm going to start putting lines and zones and all that supports, and I'm going to start to identify certain zones that I find as important, or areas that I feel like play a big role in terms of us having interest. So the first thing that I see before even drawing any lines, right, is the price dropped. We got price price dropped from this area zone right here, this price right here, which is 2,696, right? So price started to drop from after reaching this price right here. Excuse me. And after price decided to drop, price drop to that value right there, right? So after price dropping, we noticed that it couldn't break below this zone right here. All right. So what we're gonna do, we are gonna notice how I'm drawing my zone, right? So what I usually do, I draw from the close, the latest candlestick, which is this one, before price went backwards, right? Reversed. So this would be the candlestick close, right? The bearish candlestick close right there. So this is where you would put your line or your rectangular block. So this is where you would start drawing your zone till that wick, the tip of, I don't really pay attention to which wick, but the wick that you see the longest, this way you put your other line, right? And then this would be your zone. So now we notice that price reversed. It went touched this block right here, and then it went back. But naturally, this is just to help us identify a potential trade, right? We're not necessarily going to trade this. If you're out here wondering, we're not really going to trade this. So what we are going to do, we want to see what price is really trying to do, right? So before price went below here, we noticed that price broke that high right there, right? This is what we noticed. Price broke that high and then it dropped, and then it couldn't break this zone right here, this week, right? So after that, it went into that zone right there and then it reversed, right? But now notice how price has also broken this level right here. Notice how price has broken that level, that's high right here, right? And after that it drops, right? So now usually before before I even decide to to even feel like I want to trade something, right? I want to see something like this usually, because there's two ways that I trade, right? But the first thing that I want to see is something like this. I would want to see something like this, right? So I would want to see equal, like parallel sides, like these ones, right? And then I would clone this part right here and put it on that middle part, right? Which I call midpoint. So what you would want to see is price coming back to that midpoint. And there's certain things that we look for. We don't just jump in, right? So there's certain things that that we look for before we trade, right? So all this right here is just to simplify things for me, right? To understand what price is doing, if price is active or price is consolidating or whatnot, right? So this is just to help me understand the market condition, right? So notice how I gave you that illustration right there, that figure right there. So so now what I'll be looking for is something similar to that or something like that, right? So I want to see if I'm able to identify something like that right here, right? If you guys are able to identify something similar to that, y'all can just lock in the idea in your heads, right? In your minds. So for me, usually I would first, attempt to draw it. So maybe I would start by drawing right here, right? Can never be too sure with these things. So you have to draw it. You have to be able to get used to drawing things and seeing it as what they are, for what they are. So this would be my midpoint, right? Because I'm noticing that price dropped from where? From here, touched here, midpoint again. But notice how price couldn't arrive at that high right there. It couldn't touch this trend line right here. Notice how after rejecting by that zone and respecting that trend that I drew, right, it couldn't respect the opposite one, right? So we notice that price is moving sideways from this point, right? This point on, right? That doesn't mean we done, right? That just means price is just stuck within this zone right here, or this trend line that we're trying to draw out, right? But remember, this trend line is not valid yet, right? The trend line is not valid because now what we're noticing is that price eventually it couldn't touch this trend line. It broke this high right here, and then after that price was failing to go higher, right? Meaning to this trend line right there. So price decided to drop after that, coming back, breaking this trend line, which is something we do not want to see. We don't want to see candlestick bodies closing below this trend line. So the moment we see that, we understand that price is not respecting this concept right here, right? So we have to forget about. So let's say price does come back and rejects back at this trend line. We don't necessarily trade it. We look for a different way of approaching it because it was violated right here. This is something that we shouldn't see. The moment we see price reject or creating a parallel size or angles or whatever, we would want it to react to this opposite one, right? We don't want to see it come back and breaking it or whatnot. Maybe if price didn't break this, if it came back here, we would consider if certain conditions are met, right? But now I want to teach you guys that the the moment you see that certain things are not met, it doesn't mean you need to force a trade, right? It just necessarily mean that you need to approach it differently, right? Because you can notice that if you try and force it, you obviously gonna make a loss. So that's not what we want. So what we want here is to identify the reasons why price keeps coming back to this zone right here, which I drew out, right? So now what I would do, I would remove this because it has been violated there, right? So it's no longer of importance to us, right? It's not important to us. So so now we want to understand that price keeps coming back to this, but it's failing to go lower. So logically we would expect price to go higher, right? But just because we're seeing that price has rejected here, right? Just because we're seeing that, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to just trade because we saw that first rejection. No, we would want to draw out, because you want to have as many confirmations as possible. The more the confirmations, the better the outcome, right? So that's what I want to just promote out there. So all right. Mm, mm. You see what I'm doing here is showing you that you can never really know when are you gonna get like a trade, right? So you have to be very, because it's the first time I'm even looking at this setup right here, but I'm trying to give you an idea of what it takes when you're trying to trade, right? Trying to give you guys an idea of what it takes if you're trying. So now what I'm noticing is that price is not really giving us this pattern right here, because this pattern right here is giving us a crucial understanding of if we have to understand, I mean, if we have to stay back or jump in, right? So notice how I am really paying attention to the pattern, right? If we're getting a trend like movement, this is what I'm looking for right now. Don't be confused. The aim is not to trade. The aim is to find what you understand and then trade what you understand, right? So I would be lying to you guys if I said you should just trade what you see. No, you should trade what you understand, right? If you're seeing that price is rejecting, if you feel like price is moving higher, it doesn't mean you should trade, right? So you should trade what you understand, because what you understand is what's gonna save you. Maybe other traders understand what to do here, but for the structure or for the kind of trades that I take, it requires serious amounts of discipline and you know concentration. Because one mistake, you can just lose everything. This is the 1 minute time frame, so anything might happen, especially if you have like over leverage or anything like that. So now I'm really trying to, because it's the first time I'm looking at this setup, but now I am trying to find what this this thing right here. So let's try again one more time. So I would draw out here. I'm noticing that price came back here. right? So this right here would be our midpoint. So nope, price went there, touched there, and so this right here would be our midpoint. So now notice how we are getting to this pattern right here. Notice how we, so obviously this would be vice versa, right? This would be vice versa. This is like we would have our one, we would have our one here, we would have our one there, and then we'd have our second touch there, right? So this is the same thing as what you see on this opposite side right there. So this would be your one, and this would be your two. Sorry about that. So this would be your midpoint, right? So let me just do it so you guys understand. So I call this midpoint. So now everything is coming together, right? Now we starting to understand, right? Because now we're understanding that price is failing to go below this zone right here. And now we are getting this upward trend, this trend-like movement pointing at like upside, the upper direction, right? So this now confirms to us that price is really trying to move higher, like it's trying to go higher. Why? Because we understood that price is failing to break this zone right here. I mean, zone. Price is failing to break this zone right here, which is a zone. So yeah, so price has been failing to break below this zone right here. So now we're noticing this pattern right here, and it's pointing upwards. It's an upward trend-like direction, right? So we would want to trade at this level right here, because we're noticing that price came back to this parallel side, right? And then it reacted. It reacted. Price broke liquidity right there. So this would be your liquidity being taken out right there. So this would be your liquidity being taken out right there. So notice how price has taken out that low right there, right? And after taking out that low, it starts to shoot higher. Notice that's not like chance. It knows what it's doing. It's trying to confuse the trader, right? So, but if you understand that this zone right here has been, and notice how this low right here was also taken out. This one right here. Notice how this was also taken out. So this also is the reason. This is also the reason why I'm saying you shouldn't just trade because you're seeing a reaction, because you're missing out on movements like this and you're putting yourself at risk, right? If you just trade what you see, you won't understand what is going on, right? Because you're just trading after you see a rejection, and then you just jump in. You can't really manage what's going on. But now, waiting for this structure right here, for this pattern to happen, right? It gives us an understanding. Notice how I was constantly looking for it, right? But the moment that I identify we getting this movement right here, that is our killer pattern. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This thing right here is gonna change your trading journey, right? So let me not waste any time. I don't want this video to be so long. So now we're gonna look at why this this level right here was broken, right? This weak or this low was broken. This was liquidity. The people who traded, yeah, the people who traded at this rejection right here, whoever traded, they became liquidity, right? Because price is not yet ready to move higher. Price wasn't ready. Where yes, we can all identify that there was a rejection at this level, but not everyone was patient enough to realize that price is not gonna change directions after that, right? So a lot of people had to trade that, and then price started to drop, which liquidity was also taken there, right? But notice how this does not get broken after we identify this pattern. Notice how this level right here is not, it's not being like bothered with, right? So notice how price just gives you the first touch, the midpoint, second touch, and then it respects this trend line, but creates creates like a deception for people to get taken out. So uh this right here might be a reason to get traders to get excited and then eventually just take them out again, right? So like I said, I call this liquidity. The moment I see something like this, I see it as liquidity, because this week right here couldn't really touch this trend line, but instead it pushed up, and then for some reason it took that out and then it touched the trend line. So it was a trap, kind of a trap. So this can also play a role in convincing people that the market is trying to break lower. But does it catch? Why would the market want to break lower if it's giving you an upwards direction? Because you can notice how I drew this pattern. It's like an upward trend, right? It's an upside. It's going up. I don't know why I have this area pointing down, but you notice how the trend line is facing the upwards direction. That is something that most people cannot identify, because they're so focused on this, what price is trying to do right here, not paying attention of what we just, this key element right here that I'm highlighting for you guys, which is very important. So notice how this all goes back to me identify this zone, right? And what we're looking for before we even become interested. And that goes to this structure right here, this trend line, trendy structure, right? So here we're having an upward trend. We can call it a trend after we see that price has respected that opposite trend line, right? So from here we can call it, and notice how we're getting a push after that. Momentum is kicked in now, volume is kicked in. So after we notice that price has kicked in, right? I mean, volume has kicked in. This is where we understand that the moment you notice these gaps right here, these volume gaps right there, that shows you that price is trying to push rapidly. Like price is trying to change directions rapidly. Like decisions are coming in rapidly, right? Like the market is making rapid decisions. I mean, not all the time this plays a role, right? But when you focus mainly on what I'm teaching you, you can understand what I'm trying to tell you. And I'm gonna teach you more of these things as I go on, right? As I get better also in my uh teachings, right? So now what I want you guys to focus on is what price is doing. After this low was taken out and this trend line was respected and price started to push higher, I want you guys to notice once I switch to the 2 minute time frame, right? I want you guys to notice what happens. I'm going to jump to the 2 minute time frame. Notice how volume just kicked in. Notice how, and then we break through. We break through right? So now what I want you guys to do here, I want you guys, judging by how much price was failing to break below the zone and us getting this upward trend, the moment you see that you have straight up, like you're just getting like a big ass candlestick with volume, like with a volume gap in between, breaking market structure, breaking market structure, right? The moment you see that, the moment you see that, remember what I've said to you. The moment you see that, remember this has to be, this plays a big role when there's a certain zone where price is failing to break below, and then you get this pattern right here, and then you get a break of liquidity, and then after that you see rapid, and then you see a gap forming after that rapid push, and then it breaks. But this has to be before price breaks the market structure, right? This has to happen before, not after. The moment you see that and then price continuously breaks again, right? This is where you enter. This is where you enter. So you entering this trade, you would want to enter right here. You want to, but keep your risks according to what you have, right? Your accounts. Don't over leverage because it's a 1 minute time frame, and you need to be mindful that you still have to manage it correctly. You can't just, jump in crazy amounts, and now you blow your account in just seconds. So you don't want to do that. So this is where you'd want to enter. This is where you'd want to trade. But I'm not advising you guys to trade. I'm just advising you guys to go and practice. Go and try it out for yourselves. See if it works, and then once you're comfortable, then y'all can try it. So this is where you'd want to jump in with your trading, right? Enter your positions here. So your target would be, so judging by the setup, the setup, we're noticing that price has been dropping, right? Has been dropping for a while now, right? Price has been dropping, and then this became a zone where price decided that no, we're gonna stop here and just decide what we're gonna do, right? So eventually we got to this pattern right here, and then that's where price decided to change directions. So for us to even understand that this thing right here is very important to us, we need to understand that this zone became the foundation of us getting to this point right here. This became our foundation, right? Without this level, we wouldn't have structured our trade this way. We wouldn't have had an idea of what we should expect, right? So this gave us an expectation. If the market had to break this zone right here, the expectation would have shifted also, right? So knowing that price is failing to break, and now getting a complement of this right here, this just seals the deal for us, right? So now I want to show you how to target. So after you jump in right here, you would want to put your protective stop loss after price has broken that number 2 right here. After price breaks that 2, because it will break it, right? Because you can notice how volume just kicked in rapidly, right? So you would want to enter right here after that close, after the break of market structure, after that close, you enter. So obviously, if you're wondering where your stop loss, I'll tell you in a minute, but now I just want to give you the idea of the target and how to manage that trade, right? So after the trade closes and closes above the number 2, because this shows you that if this high right here is broken, this gives you an idea that price is trying to push higher, right? because this level was broken. Notice how this one wasn't broken. Price didn't break this one, but this one is broken. And notice how number two was broken. I mean, number one was broken here. And notice how this midpoint wasn't broken. So that just gives you an idea that all price is really trying to push higher. So we should expect that push in the third break, which is this one. That's why I'm saying it. That's where you should put your protective stop loss, because sometimes price does come back and try to, so the protective stop loss is just to prevent that from happening, from you getting a loss, right? So this is where you would enter, and then after you get that, you can just place a protective stop, and then your major target would be this right here, right? Would be that right here, because this is what this is the founder of this zone. This became the founder of what we're trading. So price would definitely want to break that, because this is where the price started to turn, right? Price came here, went higher, went down, and eventually price is gonna want to break that, right? So it's logical for us to target that one. But anything further than that, it would come to you as a trader. If you're managing your trade correctly, then you would. But I'm not teaching that right now, right? Because usually I also target that. This is what I usually target, right? This is what I usually target, the I guess I could call it the midpoint, right? Because this feels, or not feels, but this looks like a M, a W, right? This looks like a W. So I guess I would say target the midpoint of that W, right? W, right? So that would be a logical target, right? Because price was trying to go higher since, right? After breaking this, coming back here and then respecting that zone and all that, price was really trying to go higher, but it ended up consolidating, and eventually we got to this right here. So if you're just watching this will be confusing to you. So I would advise that you start from the beginning so that you understand what I'm trying to teach right here. So this would be your major target, right? You would target that. This is what you would want to target. Right. So I'm gonna close my lesson right here. But if you guys want like me to break it down with no or like without candlesticks, just drawing out examples, y'all can comment down below. I'll be happy to just make a separate lesson where I just break it down to you bit by bit, right? So that you can understand it from that perspective, and then we can make further examples on how to catch these kind of setups, right? But there's many ways that you trade. Sometimes we don't even get this zone right here, or an area where price is fading to break below. Sometimes you don't really get that. So we should understand that there's many examples that are just gonna come. Just because you're not getting this kind of setup, it doesn't mean there's no trade that week or that day. So it's very important that you stay with us. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. There's many examples that I'm going to teach you guys so that you can catch killer moves like these, So peace and love, man. Till then.